One of the founders I'm working with right now had a 2% close rate. Yes, you heard that correctly, only 2%. And after tweaking only two parts of their sales call framework, they're now closing at 23% with the same reps and the exact same leads. They didn't change their price. They didn't get pushier. They just removed the friction that was making buyers hesitate. My name is Dylan Starr, and in today's episode, we are going to cover how to ethically increase your B2B close rate. And I'm talking without discounts that erode your margins, without high pressure tactics that's going to damage relationships, and without price drops that's going to devalue what it is that you are offering. We really want to focus on transforming your entire sales approach with ethical strategies that will respect both your prospects and, more importantly, your bottom line. Now, before we get into it, I want to discuss why your close rate is actually the biggest revenue multiplier in the company, okay? This is a big common mistake, is that most founders obsessively chase more leads. In fact, we covered this on the last episode right before this. And pouring money into marketing and lead generation while ignoring your conversion rate is a very, very big mistake. Because let's go into the math. Think about it. If you increased your close rate from just 20% up to 30%, right? Only a 10% climb. That delivers a 50% revenue boost with the exact same number of leads, with leads not even changing, and zero additional marketing spend. In fact, it actually has a multiplier effect. Better conversion rates compound over time, creating sustainable growth while reducing customer acquisition costs and improving overall team morale. So here's everything we are going to cover today. Number one, invisible conversion leaks. These are the three hidden problems that are sabotaging even experienced sales teams on most B2B calls. Number two, natural fix framework. How to address these issues without sounding scripted, without being manipulative, or really coming across pushy. So I know how important that is when it comes to B2B sales, especially if you're doing any type of cold outreach and talking to cold prospecting. We don't want to come across pushy. And finally, number three, my belief gap checklist. This is a practical 5-question tool that you can use to diagnose and repair prospect hesitation before it kills any of your deals. All right, conversion leak number one. It's all about avoiding confusion. Prospects don't buy what they don't understand. And you'd be surprised because most prospects actually understand far less than you think. Think about it. A confused buyer will never buy. And when your offering seems so complex and unclear, prospects will default to no as a self-protection mechanism. And oftentimes we don't even know in B2B what's going on, and we're not even aware that they're confused. In fact, I had a call breakdown today where I watched a call with a individual who's closing B2B, and he had a life coach as his prospect. And I mean, life coaches, it's so funny because they are always classic down the board when it comes to their offering. This guy was so all over the place with the type of individuals that he could work with. And I'm talking about the prospect in the recording. He felt that his niche, right? He really felt that it wasn't complex by helping anyone that has an external factor that they could bring into the equation. Now, you're probably watching this and thinking, well, what the heck does that even mean? And the answer is yes, exactly. When I was literally breaking down the call and watching it, I couldn't even understand what it was that this guy was trying to say or what it meant. His offer was just so confusing. And the first thing that popped in my head is gosh, if it's this confusing trying to understand what it is he's saying, how does this guy's prospects feel? It must be very, very confusing, really trying to understand who it is he helps and how he's going to help them, right? A very, very confusing offer. And confusion creates friction that kills your deals before price is even discussed, right? The damage is already done. So here's what I call the clarity solution. Whenever you finally get through your sales conversation and you get around to doing your pitch, just remember these three things: pain, path, and proof, okay? You want to structure every pitch around this simple framework. Address their challenge, being the pain, okay? Then you want to outline your solution, which is the path, having a very clear path that's going to outline everything. And then finally, back it up with evidence. That is the proof. Show proof of the evidence of other people who have followed the same path actually going and getting results. You want to make sure that you have one clear vehicle, just one. That is all you need. Present one core offering rather than multiple options. When you have multiple options for them to choose from, this is where prospects get very paralyzed, especially if it's very complex, right? So usually in B2B sales, I'll hear people ask how to handle the I need to think about it objection. But when you actually go and review the calls, the person who's actually closing the deal actually gave them so much to think about. They outlined so many different paths and options that it was so overwhelming that no wonder they actually needed to think about it and they would be paralyzed because it just wasn't easy to understand and it wasn't simple. It wasn't one clear vehicle. And finally, you want to have a defined next step. You don't want anything to be vague. You don't want to ever say anything like, well, what works for you? Right? Asking that question is very vague. Be specific, have clear action steps, and more importantly, have timelines associated. So the prospects will go through and actually know what to expect in what time frame and by what date. The fastest path to not being confused is always laid out when you know what to expect. Think about if you can look through a crystal ball and see into the future and you knew exactly what was going to happen step by step. Now, I know we don't have a crystal ball, but that's okay. Pretend like you did. What would that path look like for your prospects after they pay you and move forward? The more detailed you can be on that in terms of timeline, the more deals you're going to close. And I promise you, your close rate is going to skyrocket just from making that one tweak alone. Conversion leak number 2. This is talk imbalance. This is what we call the conversation problem. Most B2B sellers fall typically into one of two traps. The first one is founders over talk, right? They talk way too much. And if you actually review the call and see who spoke the most between the prospect and the founder, it usually comes down to the founder. And the reason for this is because most founders are very passionate about what they do. And listen, I get it. You should be passionate. You should have all this knowledge. But because you have so much knowledge, it actually ends up being the biggest crutch against you, because instinctively you start talking about all the features and all the benefits, and you end up dominating all the conversations, and you don't give the prospect the opportunity for them to speak and to actually give you the information you need so you know what beliefs you need to overturn and how to actually sell them the right way. So you want to avoid over talking. And then number 2, sales reps under question. We see this a lot when it comes to people who are hired because, again, they don't have as much knowledge as a founder. So sales reps won't spew all the features and benefits because they just don't know as much as founders. But on the flip side, they actually will only ask surface level questions. They don't know how to actually go deeper into getting to the impact, to the core problems. So what's a balanced solution? What do you want to really strive for? What you want to strive for is what I call a buyer story ratio. This is where the prospect speaks 60 to 70% of the time. And obviously the other 30 to 40 would be whoever is handling the sales call. You want to be focused on their challenges. You want to be focused on their goals, and then whatever criteria is necessary for them to make the decision, right? Whatever decision is going to be best for them, whether that's yes, whether that's no, ideally, that's what you want. Not even necessarily a maybe. No is a decision too, but I would rather have a no, right, than people just not able to make a decision, period. So how can we actually go a little bit deeper into understanding their challenges? And this is what I call the inception loop. And the first thing you want to do is you want to frame every question before asking the question. You want to frame it with set context. You want to give them context first. And then you want to ask, which is number 2, ask an open question. Let me give you a quick example, okay? Rather than just saying, hey, what is your biggest challenge? Like most people do, they say a broad question like, hey, what's your biggest challenge? Well, you can get anything out of biggest challenge, but what if you wanted to actually guide them to saying the challenge that you want them to? Like you wanted to go and guide the conversation. How could we do this? Well, you would do it by actually giving context. For example, let's say you wanted them to have a closing problem and they say they think that their challenge is going to be leads, right? And they come in, they're like, oh, hey, well, my challenge is like, I'm not getting enough leads. But you want to guide them to the conclusion of something else. You could say, hey, like right now with the state of leads being just so little, I know in our experience, what we see that happens a lot is it actually deters reps away from wanting to come and be a sales rep in the business because of churn, right? In order for them to hit their goal, they want to make sure they're going to have a stacked calendar. So I guess for you, what kind of challenges do you feel like that you guys are seeing when it comes to hiring and even retaining reps because of the lack of lead flow? Now, notice how I spent a lot of time in that example giving context. I'm basically telling them how I want them to go and think. Notice how if I give that kind of context, what do you think they're going to actually say? They're probably going to give me challenges that is only around hiring reps and only around how difficult it is to retain them if they've had that experience. And they're going to do that because I gave context first. So I'm controlling the way that the conversation is going to go. So it's very important that you always frame everything first, set context, then ask the question. And then finally, you want to do another frame again. You want to just reflect insight. Reflect insight, meaning you're actually letting them know that you understood what it is they said, and you're clarifying what that is so that they understand that you're listening and you understand and you get them and you get their situation. And then after that, you get to ask again, right? Round and round it goes. Go deeper and deeper. This is what anchoring to a key part of pain means. So if you have a team or you have a process in your business and you have a script, you don't want to just have every single question of your script be like one question, then ask the next one, then ask the next one. So if you go from challenges and then you say, well, hey, well, what's it like with timeline for business, or how many leads they're getting, or what are the numbers of the revenue of the business, rather than just asking those 2, 3, or 4 things in a row, you want to actually go deeper into each one of them until you strike gold, then go to the next one. But most people don't know how to do that. So just follow this simple framework. Frame, ask, frame, ask. Keep doing that until you actually go and strike gold. Which leads me to conversion leak number 3. This is all about belief gaps. Deals don't die from logical objections. They die from unaddressed doubt, beliefs. These are beliefs that your prospects are holding on to that you aren't aware of, okay? Even when prospects nod along, invisible belief gaps can actually sabotage your close rate. They're thinking things like, will it work, right? So what's the fix for this? Telling stories, having case studies, testimonials, and data points that actually prove results. So this way, it's just impossible for them to think, will this work? Because you just have an overwhelming amount of evidence throughout the conversation. And then the next thing they could be thinking is like, okay, well, will this actually work for me? How do you do this, right? Having customized examples, industry parallels, personalized implementation plans, because every prospect goes through the same thing. Can this work? And will this work for me as in my own industry, in my situation? Prospects love to go down that rabbit hole of thinking, well, yeah, that's totally cool. I understand that XYZ worked for them, but that doesn't necessarily going to work for me because I'm so different. I'm so unique, right? This is how prospects always think. And then, is now the right time? This is a belief that you don't even know is aware, and they're literally thinking this in their head. And how do we fix this? You do this with opportunity costs. If you have things like calculators where you can actually go and calculate what is costing them from not taking action, or anything you can show in terms of doing calculations with them on the call to make them aware of something they weren't even aware of. Very, very important, because it's going to show that now is the right time because of how much cost is building up over time that they weren't even aware about. It creates a sense of urgency. And finally, do I believe in you? Right? These are all questions that's going through the head that is around your capacity to actually deliver. You being you, the brand, and the company. Okay. How do you fix this? Expertise signals, having a support structure in place. Like what kind of level of support are you able to give them if you guys do business together? And then finally, any type of risk reversal guarantees, right? Anytime you have a guarantee, it's super, super powerful to go and lean on. And kind of like as a pro tip, you can, if you have a really good guarantee, you can use a qualify frame throughout the entire sales conversation, leaning on the guarantee, basically saying in the very beginning of your call that, hey, we work with people doing XYZ and we have an amazing guarantee. And then boom, you hit them with the guarantee in the beginning of the call. And they're like, oh, wow, that's crazy. It's like, yeah, right. But it's only for people that actually have certain things in place to make sure that they qualify for the guarantee. So I guess the goal of this conversation would be to really see like, if we can put the guarantee in place for the state that your business is in, right? Now they know and understand, oh, this guarantee's in the back of their mind. And think about how powerful it is in terms of close rate, right? They want to be qualified now during the entire sales conversation to meet the needs for the guarantee because they want the guarantee, right? So they're now selling themselves to you. And if it makes sense for their situation and the math makes sense, then the guarantee is going to work in your favor and your close rate is going to bump up and up and up over time. So super, super powerful. All right. And as a bonus, as always, during every episode, I love to give you guys something actionable that you can walk away with during this episode that you can go and execute on. And this is what I call the belief gap checklist. Number one is all about outcome clarity. You want to ask yourself after every single call, you want to go through this checklist so that you can rate, did you actually cover the belief gaps? Number one, can the prospect clearly articulate the specific result that they will achieve with your solution? So you want to go back, think about the call, review the call, and see, were you able to get them to articulate exactly what result that they would be able to get leveraging your solution? Number two is all about urgency cues. Have they expressed consequences of inaction or timeline pressure for solving this problem? Very, very important. You want on every single call to make sure that consequences for inaction is stated and that they understand that it is costing them time, money, and energy by not fixing whatever the problem is that you made them aware that exists, right? Notice how powerful it is for urgency. Number three, case relevance. Did I share a one-sentence case study that mirrors their exact situation? Knowing your stories of your case studies like the back of your hand is a game changer when it comes to sales calls. So if you have a sales team in place right now, or if you're the founder, super, super important. You don't have to go crazy with this. You can have 3 to 5 really, really good stories max. That's all you need. But really knowing those stories and how you can relate it to each prospect is going to be really, really impactful for these sales calls. Number 4, it's all about trust triggers. What credibility signals did I provide that address their specific trust concerns? Okay. Credibility signals. What did you show for credibility that is going to leverage more trust from the prospect? Were there any type of trust triggers throughout the entire conversation, throughout the sales calls, that is going to help deepen the connection between your company and them so that they will trust you more? And finally, question number 5, the actual ask. Did I clearly request the next step with confidence rather than hesitation? Notice I said confidence. You will often find when you look at reviewing a sales call, by the end of the conversation, rapport is there, everything's going great. And sometimes the founder or the sales rep will get a little bit weird when it comes to getting to the point when they have to transition over to the pitch. You can feel this almost change in energy where their tone shifts. They start hesitating. They don't sound as confident and as certain, and they get a little bit awkward, which, by the way, is very, very bad. If there's ever a time to be confident, it is at the point when you're about to transition into your presentation. So if you're doing demos and you have slide decks, whatever it is, okay, it's go time. If you are saying, hey, I'm about to go and pitch this offer to your prospect, you need to bring your A game. Even if you're uncertain, even if you're on the fence of like, hey, maybe I should practice and I don't really know if the stage that this person's at, it does not matter. It's like a switch that has to go off in your brain where you're giving a 10 out of 10 performance. So if anything, your confidence goes up when it's time to transition and when to pitch, because that is literally, think Oscars, right? Your lights, camera, action, go. All about confidence. And you want to go through all 5 of these questions after each of the calls that you have to see, are we leaving deals on the table? And when you ask these, it's so clear because most people don't know what it is they need to fix in order to increase their close rate. But when you go through this, it just becomes super, super clear. When you go to look out for these, you're like, oh, we're not having enough urgency. Oh, you know what? There's not enough trust going on. Or hey, we don't have enough confidence. We're not telling enough stories for case studies. So you can see how much of an impact just having a checklist like this is for actually knowing what to review on the calls and how it correlates to actually increasing your close rate. Now, again, notice nothing changes. You don't have to change anything with price. You just get to close more deals by focusing on these key things. Now, if you like that checklist and you would like a PDF version of it to know exactly all the questions in more detail, then find me on Instagram or LinkedIn at Dylan Star Official. DM me the word belief. So look me up on Instagram, look me up on LinkedIn, go and DM me the word belief, and you will receive a complete checklist as a downloadable PDF with additional implementation notes and examples so that you can go further and you can use it yourself or give it to your team. Now, this entire process is what I call the close rate reframe. You want to build a sales process that earns belief, not just compliance. When prospects truly believe, what I want you to understand is that price literally will become secondary to value. When they actually see the value, you don't run into these issues like most people do, where they have to go and offer discounts. And if you are offering discounts, there you go. That's the problem. That means they don't actually see the value. And so everything starts with clarity. You want to have simplified messaging that eliminates confusion and makes decision-making completely easier. And then once clarity is there, then it goes into relevance. Relevance is all about customized solutions that address specific pain points and desired outcomes. And then once you have clarity and then you have relevance, now you have trust. You can start focusing on trust, which is credibility signals that establish you as the right partner for implementation. And then once trust is there, then you can have open dialogue, which is just balanced conversations that uncover true motivations and concerns. Notice how it just goes around like a wheel. You have clarity. Clarity develops more relevance. The more relevance you have, the more trust you build. The more trust you build, the easier dialogue becomes. The easier dialogue becomes, boom, back to clarity. They all complement each other. So you want to focus on these four, and the better you get at each one of them, the easier it is for the ones that are adjacent to them. This is why it's called the close rate reframe. If you got value from this episode or any of the episodes of this show before this, then make sure you are subscribing to the Sell for Scale show, right? We cover weekly B2B scaling strategies that work for businesses at every single stage, right? 30K per month, which is all about establishing reliable sales system. Companies at 100K per month, which is all about building and managing sales teams. And finally, companies at 300K per month plus and beyond, which is all about optimizing for enterprise growth. Each episode delivers actionable frameworks that you can implement immediately without complex CRMs or expensive consultants. And we are available on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. So feel free to subscribe on whichever one of the platforms are of your choice. And if you're new to the show and you want to know what recommended episode could come next, then I recommend you go back to episode 13, which is how to fix broken sales follow-up without automations or any of these cringe scripts. Because even great calls still need great follow-up to maximize your close rate. The more follow-up you have while your close rate increases, the more deals you're going to close. And in this episode, you'll learn how to create value-driven follow-up sequences that prospects actually want. We covered how to time your touch points for maximum impact without being annoying. And finally, how to write messages that get responses even from ghosted prospects. All of that and more back in episode 13. My name is Dylan Starr. This is Sell for Scale, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.